My name's Hayden Hawks. I live here in Cedar City, Utah. Um, I'm a professional ultra trail runner for Hoka and have been doing this for about 8, 9 years now. I currently I'm training for Western States. After finishing Western States, I finished second place a couple years ago. Trying to go back to Western States this year and trying to get the win there. It's definitely kind of the race that I'm really shooting for this year. I've also won the CCC 100K at UTMB. Have won a lot of the most competitive races in the world. Black Canyon, Speed Goat, Broken Arrow, to name a few. And I love what I do. I love what I do as a professional ultra runner, and really excited to be on the podcast here today. I think the other thing too, and this might relate a little bit more to what we're going to talk about today, is I have done some stage racing throughout my career as well. I've competed in the Coastal Challenge down in Costa Rica twice. That's a race that I've really enjoyed and had the opportunity to compete down there. And I've actually won the event and finished second place in that event as well. And so, yeah, stage racing is something that I do really enjoy and hope to do more in the future. But yeah, I guess that's just a little bit about me and some of my accomplishments and what I'm currently training for and the goals I have for this year.
Cool, man. It's good to have you here on the show, and it's cool that you're local to Southern Utah. You live kind of down the road from Kanab, and you definitely have a lot of experience running and as a coach, I should say. So it's good to have you on.
Yeah. I grew up in St. George, Utah, and I spent a lot of time in Kanab. We'd go out there camping there all the time as a family, and I've done a lot of my training and running, in and around that area. Like I said, I currently live in Cedar City, which is only like 45 minutes, maybe an hour from Kanab, not too far away. And I've spent a lot of time over there on the North Kaibab, the north part of the Grand Canyon over there, and then up into Zion and that whole Grand Staircase area. It's definitely a place that's really means a lot to me and close to my heart. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area. Like, it's definitely a place that everybody needs to, I guess, check off their bucket list at some point in their life.
Yeah, I would agree. It's beautiful, and it's super dynamic landscape of like low desert, high desert. It's colorful, and you get a lot of variety there in the terrain, which is super fun.
Yeah, and I think the community is really cool too around that area as well. And not only can you go see the national parks, but there's a lot of other just amazing areas that people don't really know about that are in that area as well. Me and you have explored a lot of that. Doing a lot of like traverses and projects and different things like that. And yeah, I'm really excited for these athletes, competing in the Grand to Grand this year, because they're going to get a little taste of all that, and it's definitely going to be something that they're never going to forget for sure.
Definitely. It's an area that's special to us, and it's cool to see people go out and be able to explore it on foot. Because like driving through it, you can, I think you can kind of appreciate the beauty, but then when you're actually in it, like just walking, running through it, hiking through it, like you're like, oh yeah, this place is amazing. You really get to like feel it and experience it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that, and then just the history of the area as well. It's amazing.
Definitely. So currently you're training for Western States, which is about what, 5 weeks away?
Yeah, about 5 weeks away now. I'm currently right in the heart of my training. Completed a couple pretty big weeks the last 2 weeks. After Black Canyon, I competed in Black Canyon in February. Did really well there. Was able to win and set the course record at Black Canyon 100K down in Arizona, which secured my golden ticket, or my spot into Western States for this June. But I had a little injury pop up after the race. I had to take care of that. Spent like 6 to 8 weeks just trying to recover and overcome that. And then, I started my build into Western States about 5 weeks ago. Did some short mileage weeks and then kind of built gradually up. And since I guess completed 2 big weeks the last 2 weeks. And then now I'm going into my 3 biggest weeks, this week, next week, and then the next week. And then I'll have my 2 week taper down into Western States. So, yeah, I'm feeling it a bit. I'm a little bit tired right now. Definitely focusing on recovery and trying to get through, each week and build as much fitness as I can. But also, definitely feeling the training a bit and just trying to make sure that I am smart with it. so that I can go into Western States healthy, as fresh as I can be, and as fit as I can be.
Definitely, that makes sense. Let's just talk about like training for Western states in general and how a lot of those training principles can apply to a stage race. Because you were saying you ran Coastal Challenge a couple times, you've done Western states a couple times now, and coming back. So, like, what are some of the basics or the basic things that apply to training for 100 that also could apply to a stage race? Like, they're obviously both running and they're both like a long distance, but they're also different, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think I think you hit it right on the head. Is like training for 100 mile, like 100 miler, is really similar to training for a stage race. Like the training is pretty similar in what you do. I mean, you're stacking multiple big days, day after day, week after week. Like just an example, for instance, like right now, I'm training for Western States. I know that it's going to take me, 15 hours to do it. That's a long time on my feet. Um, I can't really go out and run, 80, 90 miles in one day to try and mimic that, so that I'm prepared for the time on feet that I'm going to encounter in a 100 miler. But how I can train for that is I can do back to back days, or like, for instance, going into these next, couple big weeks, I'm actually going to be going out to the Western States course, doing some training out there. Me and a friend of mine, we're going to do pretty much three blocks where we do 3 big days in a row. So the first section, I'm going to do about 14 hours in 3 days. So I'll do a 5 hour day. I'll do a like 3 4 hour day. And then I'll do another like 4 or 5 hour day. And those are back to back to back days. So even though like it's quite a bit that you're doing over a 3 day period, like that is how you can train your body and train your muscles to be able to handle the distance of something like 100 miles, is by stacking days. Because you learn how to run on tired legs, because by the time you get to the third day, you're pretty tired, you're pretty fatigued because you've already done, 10 hours of training, and then you have to go out and do another 5 hours. And that kind of helps your body and your mind, and other things like nutrition and everything helps you to train those things to handle those last hours that you're going to encounter in a 100 miler. You're still able to sleep at night. You're still able to eat and recover in between these sessions. So you're not like putting yourself into a huge debt by going out and doing, a 12, 15 hour run. And you're also able to hit those days quality, each of those days, because you are able to recover in between them. So that like is how I train for a 100 miler. And then like I'll back that up. I'll have a few rest days in between, and then I'll back that up with another 3 big days, where I do, maybe a little bit smaller amount of time, but still 3 solid days in a row. And then, yeah, I kind of do that over these big weeks of training, leading into a 100 miler. And it prepares me for the distance and the stresses and the things that I'm going to encounter in a 100 mile race. Sorry. And I think stage racing is very similar. Like, of course, you're doing multiple big days in a row. Like at the Coastal Challenge, when I did that, we would have a 50-kilometer day followed by, another like 40-kilometer day, and then another 60-kilometer day. And so like the training is very similar, because I would do kind of a similar type of sequence of multiple runs in a row to make sure I'm prepared to be able to handle those big days that I would encounter at something like the Coastal Challenge, or like Grand to Grand. And so I do think like, but you might lower it just a little bit, the mileage. It's all relevant to how many hours you're going to be running. And you kind of have to judge that and figure that out. But I do think that, the training can be very similar for 100 and a stage race.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Like learning to run on tired legs. And I think like the mental aspect too of just kind of knowing what it's like to be outside for that long and just moving your body for that long. But a lot of people who
Yeah,
are running,
getting comfortable in like on the trails too, and getting comfortable in your own head, and being, time on feet and different things like that. And also the other elements that people don't really focus on, because they focus all on fitness, they focus all on, your muscles being able to handle it, but the nutrition and the pack and the gear that you're going to use, all those things are so important. And these big, 3 day blocks of training, or these big weeks of training that you're putting in, are the time to focus on those things and practice those things, because your body's going to react differently on day 2 or day 3 or day 4 than it acted on day 1. And you have to be able to kind of understand that and know that and be able to train that in your training.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that because I think a lot of people who are running Grand to Grand are very busy business professionals. Like people that maybe don't have time to train like a professional athlete, like such as you, obviously. Like I think a lot of people are probably jealous of that. It is a lot of hard work, but a lot of people are working in the business field and doing a lot of things where and they have families at home. So they're working 10, 12 hours a day, then they have a family. So how are they able to apply this kind of like back to back long days in their training? Like, is it okay to like maybe train a long day every other day, or maybe what kind of tips and tricks could they do? Like maybe just while at work.
Yeah, everybody's got a little bit different schedule, right? And so you got to kind of do what works best with your schedule. If running a single, in the morning and just knocking it out in the morning and then working the rest of the day is what you need to do, then great, do that. Another way that you can apply this though is by doing doubles. Say you do like a shorter double in the morning and then you work all day and then you come and you do a shorter double in the evening. That's still really good training for something like this, because you're learning how to be on your feet or learning how to train and run multiple times during the day, which is going to mimic a long day out in the mountains or on the trails. And so like you just got to kind of work around your schedule and work what works best for you. Like I have athletes that I coach that singles are work the best and that's what they do, and they just can't do doubles. But then I have other athletes that breaking it up and doing a double is actually better for them in their schedule and their families and different things like that. So I think you've got to first do that. You have to communicate, of course, with your partner or your spouse, and yeah, just let them know like, hey, this is what I need to do to prepare. And most of the time they will support you. Like I've seen that with my wife. I put in a lot of training. I have 2 kids. I have other things in life that I'm doing as well. But communicating with my wife and just like being on the same page with her and letting her know like, hey, I'm going to have 2, 3 big weeks and then I'm going to taper and I'm going to have a little bit more time. Or, I'm going to have a little bit more time before I do those 3 big weeks, but just be prepared. Like it's going to be a lot for 2, 3 weeks, but like anybody can really handle 2 or 3 big weeks. And then, yeah, it's not like you need to be doing it the entire like 12-week block of training. No, it's a 3-week period, maybe, even a 2-week period that you have to really do that. Also, like just taking a weekend, and doing like a big weekend. Like this is the thing, is like what I'm talking about with these 2, 3 day, stacking big mileage days, that they don't need to be done all the time during the block of training. No, do 1, maybe 2 weekends of that, and that's all you really need to do. And that should be sufficient and be enough to prepare you, at least for the Grand to Grand or what you're going to encounter. And I think, most people, I don't know everybody, and I'm a bit privileged in this way, but I think most people can take a weekend. They can take maybe 1 day off of work, do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and call it good. And then just realize they might be a bit tired the next week. But yeah, you do a big week, and then maybe that next week you have a little bit more rest and you have a little bit more time to catch up on work or whatever it is that you're doing. And so, yeah, I think if you can be dedicated to that, diligent, and just make the time for it, it'll definitely pay off in the race, and you'll enjoy yourself a lot more.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about consistency in training because you and I have spoken about this before on other episodes and just things we've done together. But like a lot of people are just very busy traveling. Like I myself travel a lot for work, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get in, say, like my 10 or 12 mile run or whatever during the day. So it's like, okay, like, and I guess, I don't know, I'm just kind of like jumping around here, but I think the question is like, say you're traveling for work and you only have 30 to 45 minutes and you're at like a hotel or something. is it good to even get in a few miles that morning before you do something versus just like cramming everything in on the weekends? Or like is there value and consistency there?
It's definitely value and consistency. Yeah, like again, as a coach, I have a lot of athletes that they only have their weekends because they're super busy with work and family and everything during the week. And really they can only get in 30 minutes, maybe an hour a day. But that's better than nothing. Like if you can only get in 45 minutes in the morning or 30 minutes in the morning, that's going to be a lot better than doing nothing at all. And so I would say yes, like get that in. If you're questioning, like, should I even do this 30 minutes? Is it going to make a difference? It will. Your body responds to routine. It responds to consistency. It takes about 2 weeks to adapt to anything. But if you're not consistent with training, the body won't adapt. It won't adapt to the stresses that are placed upon it. But the thing is the body has to have those stresses placed upon it consistently to be able to have those adaptations. And so, yes, like even 30 minutes can make a difference, and then stack your weekends. Like I said, I have a lot of athletes that do that. And you like, especially for something like Grand to Grand, or any stage race or even 100 miler, like stacking weekends is not a bad thing. Like it's actually a good way to train, just like we talked about. And so like, yeah, if all you can do is a small runs during the week and then stack your weekends, maybe make one, maybe two of those runs, the shorter runs during the week quality. That's just going to help. It's going to raise you to a little bit higher fitness level. And then you do your big days on the weekends. Yeah. And, or like if all you can do is indoor training, you have to jump on Zwift and do an indoor bike because that's all you can do, or you have to jump on the treadmill. It pays off. It really does. And some of that stuff is actually really good training as well, because not only is it training you physically, it's training you mentally. You can set up your heater, or you can do stuff like that are going to help you with heat training that you might want to do before a race like Grand to Grand. Yeah, like I think it can really help you to do that kind of stuff. And like for instance, like if we look at this, like Tour de France riders, so they're competing in the Giro right now, which is one of the biggest tours in the world. A lot of them are training, getting ready for the Tour de France, which is in July. Um, One thing that I think is very interesting, because I follow the sport pretty heavily with cycling, is these athletes will have rest days, right, during their 21-day tour that they're doing. And instead of just like taking complete rest on those days, they'll go out for like a 30-minute hour bike ride, just spinning the legs, like nothing hard. They'll just go ride in a group and just chat and just keep the legs spinning. But the reason being is it's routine. Like you have to keep in a consistent routine. And even though like they could just take the whole day off if they really wanted to. I mean, heck, they're riding hard for 21 days. Like they deserve a day off, right? No, just getting in that 30, 40 minutes actually does more for them, and it actively recovers their system to be able to prepare for that next hard day that they might encounter in the tour. And so that, if anything, that shows you how much consistency matters, and what routine can do for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like mentally just kind of being in that headspace of like, okay, I'm going to do this again and again and again. And like it becomes routine and just becomes like habitual, and you do it every day in your life. And it's just something you do. You wake up, okay, I'm going to go do my run or my walk or whatever. And it definitely
Yeah,
makes
you
sense.
develop habits, and that being said, it doesn't have to be hard every day. Like even if you're just tired, worn out, just like I just can't do this, go for a walk, go for a hike. Like you're going to be doing hiking and walking in something like Grand to Grand, so it's relevant training to what you're preparing for. Do it, switch it up, do a bike, do a swim. Just be active, get some blood flowing. That active recovery is so important. If you do need an off day and you just mentally you're just done, I just can't do it. Yeah, take an off day. I'm not saying never take an off day, but I'm saying like stay as consistent as possible. And sometimes even doing a 30-minute walk with the family is going to do more for you than taking a complete rest day. Not only physically, but mentally. It's going to develop a habit, and it's going to keep you engaged. Because I think a lot of the times what happens is we get in we can develop habits the other way by taking too many off days. And then it's so hard for us to get back into the routine that we were in before. And then all of a sudden you've missed 4, 5, 6, 7 days. And that's when you start losing fitness. I mean, that's when you start like really getting into a bad habit, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And a little bit ago, you mentioned like using a run to test your gear and your nutrition. And I think these things are super important. Like obviously, like in a 100 miler, they're very important. But then also in a stage race where you're like a grand to grand, where you're carrying so much gear on your back for the supported people, like there's one thing, and self-support is another thing. You're carrying so much more equipment with you. Like, how do you utilize, like, say, a long run on the weekends, or even like shorter runs during the week to test your backpack, your shoes, whatever, and also your nutrition products?
Yeah, this is one of the most important things for stage racing in particular, but also like 100 milers where you have mandatory gear or whatever it is that you're having to carry. Like for instance, like UTMB, CCC, which I compete in, they have a lot of mandatory gear, and Western States has no mandatory gear. So like at a race like Western States, I'm wearing mostly a belt and handhelds. You know, I'm not carrying much. At a race like CCC or UTMB, I have a pack on that's full of gear, you know, pretty heavy. And the body, like I've talked about before, the body takes about 2 weeks to adapt to anything, to the stresses that you're placing upon it. The most important adaptation phase or time to get specific before any big event is the 4 to 6 weeks before the event. And so this is the most important time when you want to be testing your gear. You want to be wearing your pack consistently. You want to be loading your body with the amount of weight that you're going to be required to carry day to day in a race like a Grand to Grand or a Coastal Challenge or a UTMB. And so like I really focus after I complete Western States in June. I'll start, I'll have a couple easy weeks to recover, and then I'll start training, which gives me about 6 weeks, till CCC. During that 6 week period, I will be wearing a pack almost every day. Even on my easy runs, even on maybe my hour, 90-minute runs, I'm going to be putting my pack on. It won't be fully loaded probably all the time, but I just want to get my body used to being able to wear a pack. I will fully load it with UTMB kit at least 2 or 3 days a week, just because it's important for your back, your muscles, your body to be able to feel what that load is going to feel like, and to be able to adapt to that stress that load's going to put on your body. Because when you start adding weight onto your body, your gait changes, your form might change just a little bit. You might lean a little bit forward, you might lean a little bit backwards, depending on where your weight is distributed on your pack. Like there's all these little things, and even the slightest little change can make you sore, or it can load muscles differently than what you're used to if you were running without a pack. And so it's important that you do that at least 2 to 3 times a week, I would say, in that 6 week period going into race day, and that you get more specific the closer you get to race day. You test the pack, you see which pack works for you, you test all your gear, make sure like you know exactly how to get it in and out of your pack, where to put it, and you try and actually find a way to, and you'll feel this in your training, to distribute that weight the best way for you and what your body wants to do. I think that's probably the most important thing you can do leading into a race like this.
Yeah, just thinking of like testing your stuff and like knowing where things are. Like just a small story. About a year ago, I ran a trail marathon, actually on the Black Canyon course, and it was super fun. I had a really good time. But like the morning of, it was a really early start, and I forgot my race belt, and so I had to borrow one from a friend, and I had all my gels and stuff ready to go, but I had never used that belt before, and I didn't know where things were during the race, and it kind of became an issue because I'd be running on these technical trails trying to find my gels, and I couldn't find anything. So it's just kind of case in point there that like when you're at a race, especially a longer race, like it's important to know where things are because it just helps you have a better experience. You're not stressed out or frustrated trying to find something. And
Yeah, you're
And
not
I,
wasting time either. Like you can be wasting a lot of valuable time just by rummaging through your pack trying to find something.
yeah, it is frustrating too. And you're like, oh, I can't find like my sunscreen or my salt capsules or something. And you get kind of annoyed with things. But, and I
Yeah,
used to,
physically and mentally, right? Like
yeah.
mentally, you put yourself into that state, and then all of a sudden, like you're just not in a good spot.
Yeah. So how do you like, obviously like when running 100 and like, or something like CCC or UTMB or something, like you need to eat a lot. Like it's a big part of your training. And at Grand to Grand, even more so, like where you're waking up every morning, having breakfast and you're having your race day, like nutrition, and you get back to camp and you have to eat dinner to run the next day. So like, how do you test your nutrition on a long run? Like it can't just be kind of sporadic, right? It has to be very, I'm assuming it has to be very like specific.
Yeah, yeah. It depends on what your nutrition is going to be. Like if you're just planning on fueling with like just real food, or um, so the first advice I'd give is find out what there's going to be at aid stations. I know you Grand to Grand's a bit different. Like they don't really have food, right, at aid stations.
Yeah, it's just
Um,
water.
yeah, but like if you're doing a race that has food at aid stations and stuff, find out what there's going to be in those aid stations and find out if there are things there that you're going to use or you plan on using or that you could use. Because and then try and practice with those things. If you're going to use the aid stations, practice with those things in your training. For something like Grand to Grand where you're carrying all your food on you, you need to make sure that you are practicing with what you're going to be carrying. Like, don't switch it up right before you get to race day and be like, oh, I use these certain bars, during my training, but then I'm going to use a completely new, different type of bar that I've never used before, on race day. No, use the same thing that you did in training. Like, it's pretty easy. It's pretty common sense, to be honest with you. It's like if you want it to work in the race, then you need to train with it as often as possible in your training. And again, in that 6 week period before the race is the time to really be focusing and practicing on your nutrition. Any run over 90 minutes, I'm using race day nutrition in my training because not only is it training my stomach to be able to handle what I'm going to be using on race day, I'm getting comfortable with the product that I'm using, but it's also helping me recover. A 90-minute run is considered a longer run, where you're definitely putting a higher stress on the body. And if you're not hydrating and fueling properly, that's going to affect you a lot more and it's going to hurt your recovery than if you were properly fueling and hydrating during that run. So any run over 90 minutes, I'm doing race day nutrition. Um, if you're kind of concerned about like buying a whole bunch of supplements or just eating supplements all the time, then use some real food, but get those carbohydrates in, get those things that are going to help rebuild muscle and help you recover faster. It can be your own homemade things that you make that work for you. um, I always tell my athletes is like, if you can eat it 100 miles into a race, or say 90 miles into a 100 mile race, and you know that you could still eat it at that point, then it's probably a good thing that you should use because that's when it's going to be the hardest to eat stuff is at the end of races or at the end of the stage race. When you're tired and fatigued and maybe the GI system's a bit stressed, like being able to consume things and things that that you can eat no matter what. It's important to carry some of those things on you because you need to be continuing to fuel day in and day out, because that's going to help you feel better each day and it's going to help you feel good during the event as well.
Yeah, so thinking of like just a little more in depth about that, where like Grand to Grand has the 6 stages over 7 days, and like you start with like a 50K, then there's another 50K in a marathon, long day, like it's a 50 miler and stuff. So like I just want to get your thoughts on this. Like when I've say I'm going to do a race like a 50K or something, I've used like my long runs on the weekends as like a 100% run through where like the night before the event I'll have a certain meal, and then that morning of I'll kind of practice my like if you want to call it like a race day breakfast, and then I'll practice my nutrition exactly during that long run. Then I try to apply those principles to the race whenever that is. So like with grand to grand, where like you're carrying your own food, and say you're gonna eat breakfast every morning, you're gonna run all day, have dinner, and then do the same thing again and again and again and again. Like, do you think that's a good strategy for people to practice out in their long run? Say they're going to go out and run for 4 hours on a Saturday, maybe like practice their breakfast and see how they like that. And then race day or long run day nutrition and then dinner and then repeat the next day.
Yeah, yeah. I had a coach when I was younger that I would always say, because the whole phrase practice makes perfect, and people would say that all the time, practice makes perfect. And he would say, no, 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 perfect practice makes perfect. And he'd say that because he would say, you need to like try and perfect as much as you can. We're never going to perfect anything. But he said, you should try and perfect your practice as much as possible so that then you can perfect your performance, right? On race day or whatever that is. And so we were held to a higher standard where we practice was very, very important. It was a time for us to get all those things down and try and perfect so that when we got to race day, we didn't have to think about it. Or when we got to our match or our game or whatever it was, we didn't have to think about it. It was there because we'd already done it so many times in practice. And so like I think it's important that you do practice these things and that you do dress rehearsals like you talked about. Like I try and do at least 2 or 3 dress rehearsals in a block of training leading into a big event where I will eat what I would normally eat the night before the race. I'll wake up at the same time that I would wake up before the race. I'll eat my breakfast. I'll drink my caffeine or whatever it is that your morning routine is. I'll wear my kit, like my race day kit, my full pack, my poles, whatever it is that I'm using, all my gear, and I'll go through the routine of like, okay, put myself in that mindset of like, this is what race morning's gonna feel like. This is what I'm gonna do, and I will see if anything is off or if anything doesn't work or and then, after the second, third time of doing that, you'll have a good understanding or a good idea of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And then you can then do that on race day and not have to really think about it. Because the last thing you want to do is you're already going to be stressed out. You're going to have butterflies. You're going to be nervous before any event. Even the pros get nervous before every event. And it's just like, you don't want to put more stress and more nervousness and more pressure on you than you already are putting in because that only is going to cause potential GI issues. It's going to cause your heart rate to rise. It's going to cause a lot of things that you don't want on race day. So if you can get all that down before, then you don't have to worry about those things on race day. Like it's controlling what you can control, focusing on that, focusing on what can I control, what can I make sure is right, and not focusing on what you can't control, right? And if you can do that, it'll definitely be a better experience for you, and you'll have just a better race and a better time out there. And so, yeah, I think it's important to do that. Like I do it for night racing as well. If I know I'm going to go into a race that is going to require me to run through the night, I'll do a couple sessions through the night just to see like what can I eat during the night, what can my body handle, and how do I like what's my mind doing with me, how can I learn how to control that, different things like that. Like you just got to get to know yourself, and you can only do that through practicing it.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So thinking of like recovery during a stage race, because I feel like a stage race is kind of like a big training week where like maybe it's a little more mileage during the race, but similar like design anyways of like basically back to back long runs or a lot of volume. Like how are people able to recover or how do you recover during a big training week so that way you can go out the next day? Then how can those principles be applied to a stage race where someone's doing a 50K and then another 50K and then a 50 miler like back to back to back?
Yeah, yeah. I think some key things for me with recovery that have really helped me get through training blocks, but also through stage races and all those things is, yeah, I'd say definitely you have to stay on top of your fueling and your hydration. You need to be eating. Like you need to be eating what you can. I know like different races don't allow you to eat as much as you would might like after, you know, the day. Like especially as stage racing, it's like you're not going to be able to eat a ton of food like right after because you have to carry that food, right? Because grand to grand, you have to carry everything just on you, and whatever you have on you is what you can eat. So it's not like you're going to be doing like eating like a buffet every night. But that being said, like I think like you need to put in the building blocks that are going to help your muscles and your mind and your body recover as much as possible. So like getting in some proteins, getting in some carbohydrates, rehydrating is really, really important. That's probably the most important thing that's going to aid in recovery. Hydration is just key, especially during, you know, these summer months right now when I'm training really hard. Like I really focus on making sure I'm rehydrating after every single run, not just with water, but with electrolytes, and getting that back into my system to rehydrate my cells so they can regenerate properly. Um, Also, you know, modalities like you can be doing, you know, stretching, icing, maybe some activation, different things like that. Those are all getting blood flow to the area. Those are all going to help you, you know, with recovery, especially after a big day in a stage race, like doing a bit of stretching, doing some maybe some activation type stuff. That's only going to help. I would also say sleep, like trying to get to bed at a decent time if you can. Not staying up and partying the whole night. It really depends on, I guess, what you're there for. I guess if you're there just for a good time and you want to have fun with your friends, like do it, but just realize you might suffer a bit the next day. If you're really wanting to like perform well and have fun out there on the trails and not suffer, yeah, get to bed early if you can, you know, get as much sleep as you possibly can because sleep is the number one recovery tool. Another thing that really has helped me is I use a product called Currens. So it's a black currant extract from New Zealand. They're awesome. So I take two of them every morning before my exercise. They definitely help me to perform at the highest level. But they also are going to, I sometimes I'll take two like after an event or after a big hard day of training as well, and that helps aid in recovery. There's a like a really high level of plant bioactives called anthocyanins that are actually in this product, and that aids in recovery. It brings a lot of blood flow into the muscle, into the area, and yeah, like ever since I've been on Currens, it's really made a big difference in my recovery. And yeah, like you can look at the online on their website and see all the research studies that have been done that show the effects of it with recovery and how it aids in recovery. And I definitely am a huge advocate and definitely have really loved, you know, the Currens product. And ever since I've taken it, I felt like I just recover faster. I feel better in exercise or in my workouts, and I'm able to perform at a really high level. And so I do think like if you can, you know, get a pack of Currens and take it with you at something like Grand to Grand, um, I would recommend taking 1 to 2 pills in the morning before you start your day, and then taking 1 to 2 pills after, like immediately after your exercise or after you finish your stage, and that's only going to help with your recovery process. And you'll probably feel better, you know, as you go on. Start the process before. You definitely want to start taking them now, or like, you know, especially in those 6 weeks when you're doing your heavy training before the event. But then I would keep a pack on you during the race as well. It should be something that's pretty mandatory, is what I would say, and it's going to help you. Even that little pill, it's like not a lot of weight, is going to really help you to recover day in and day out on those stages.
Yeah, like a few extra grams, that's going to help you just have a better recovery and just a better week. Like it really seems worth it. And like everyone's going to get, like when they sign up and show up in Canab, they get a sample pack of that. But also, we'll put a link in the video description where you can get a discount if you buy it beforehand. Because I think like what you're saying is like taking it consistently is going to help your training, help your recovery. Then your body's going to be able to utilize that better during race week. So it's just a net positive.
Yeah, and there's also been some research done with currents that shows that it helps with heat as well, heat acclimation. And so like I use these at Western States. About every 5 to 6 hours, I'll redose during the event, actually. And it really helps me to deal with the heat acclimatization as well. They did some research studies on that, and Ruth Croft, when she won Western States a few years ago, she was taking Currens during it, and that was a really hot year. And I think she talked about it in her testimony is that it really helped her to be able to handle the heat better. And that's not just coming from us. Like we have experienced it as athletes, of course, but the research has been done that it does help with heat acclimatization. And I think that's definitely going to be something that's really important for a race like Grand to Grand, where you're going to deal with some pretty good heat.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of variables here in terrain and the heat and the altitude and stuff. And even though it's like 85 whatever degrees, like when you're up at altitude, it feels a lot hotter. So it seems like that could be very beneficial.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess thinking more so of like stage racing again, like when you ran the Coastal Challenge, like you said, you've done it twice now and you won it one year, took second place another year. Like, what did you learn going into that? Because it was a new experience for you running a stage race. So like, what's like a big takeaway you had from running the Coastal Challenge that could be applied to people running Grand to Grand?
Yeah, the first year, I took second place at the Coastal Challenge. The Coastal Challenge is one of the most competitive stage races in the world. Grand to Grand is a very competitive, very important stage race, on the whole stage race scene as well. But yeah, with Coastal Challenge, what I learned is you need to take care of yourself like day in and day out. You need to be doing those little things that can really make a difference, especially when you get later into the stage race and you're hitting those last, stages. The first year I didn't really do that. I was just like pushing every single day. Like I was just like not like so they give you like the opportunity to get massage and stuff. Like you can pay a little extra money and get massage every day at the Coastal Challenge. And like some little different benefits that will help you aid in your recovery. And I chose not to do that the first year that I did it, and I just wasn't like sleeping very well. I was kind of just like having fun with everybody in the night and just kind of enjoying the stage or the challenge. And I suffered like towards the end of the stages. The fatigue started setting in, and I started getting more and more fatigued. And yeah, I really struggled, and I ended up taking second place, which whatever, it is what it is. Still a second place finish, but the next time I came back to do the race, I told myself I'm going to really focus on taking care of myself. I'm going to get proper sleep. I'm going to try and rehydrate with electrolytes. I'm going to do like little things like Currens, and I'm going to get the massage, and I'm going to do all those things. And I had a much better experience. Like I felt pretty good each day. Of course, the fatigue was still building, but it was less fatigue, and I was able to enjoy the stages a lot more and have an overall just a better experience. And I was stronger as the stages went on, and I was able to win the event. And I would say like it's just really important to like take care of yourself during these events, because I think sometimes we can get wrapped up in just the atmosphere and the party and all like the things that maybe could hurt our recovery. And I definitely did that the first year. Second year I didn't, and I had a better experience. And but also I would say have fun, enjoy it, because like you get to be out there in nature and in these amazing areas of the world for a week with your friends and your family or whoever else you're doing it with. And like it's cool, it's fun, it's an amazing opportunity to go and explore a new part of the world and embrace that. Like really have fun and just remember these experiences that you have there, because like what else would you be doing? Would you rather be sitting in an office, working on your computer, Probably not. Like I would much rather be out in the mountains or on the trails, like having fun and enjoying the people around me. And definitely like when it starts getting hard, because it will get hard, it always gets hard. Remember that. Would I rather be in the office or would I rather be here? And I'm pretty sure you'd rather be there. And so fight through those hard moments and realize that, yeah, there's no other place you'd rather be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I think a huge takeaway from just running in ultras in general, even more so a stage race, is like one, you get to go out and hang out with a bunch of cool people. Maybe you don't know them beforehand, but then they become your friends because you kind of suffer together, and then they become lifelong friends, which is super cool. But at the same time, just like practicing gratitude. I know it sounds kind of like, I don't know, like kind of hippie or whatever, but like just being grateful for being out there in such a beautiful place with nice people, doing something awesome. Like, isn't that such a cool experience that we're lucky enough to be able to do this? And even like when it is hard, maybe you're on the long day and you're suffering, it's like, oh yeah, like I paid to do this and I'm happy to be out here because of this beautiful terrain with maybe like my new best friend here on my side, whether it's for the week or for a lifelong friend or something. Like it's so cool to be able to have those experiences, and like we should be grateful for them.
Yeah, I still have people that I connect with from the Coastal Challenge, from both of my Coastal Challenge experiences. I we follow each other on social media. We message each other every now and then. Like I have made a lot of really good friends and had a lot of really good connections with people from those stage races that I definitely cherish, and that I'm really happy that I had those opportunities to meet those people. And I plan on doing more stage racing in the future because I do think like stage racing is very unique. Um, it's a really cool experience that you get to really get to know people. And like I think one of the best ways to get to know people or to make friends is when you're both suffering together, and like you really get to like know who that person really is, and make some connections with those people, and you get really close because you are suffering together. You're in your lowest moments, um, but you're doing it together and you're getting through those moments together. And so, yeah, like I hope that everybody has a great time out there at Grand to Grand. They enjoy themselves, and they get to go see, this beautiful part of the world. And yeah, it's my backyard, and I'll tell you, like, you're pretty lucky and pretty fortunate, I guess. I guess you signed up for it and paid for it, but you're definitely enjoy my backyard because it's an amazing backyard.
Yeah, I would agree with that, man. Well, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. It was fun to chat and learn a few things about racing and stage racing in general. So thank you.
Yep, you got it.